Welcome to GovCast. I'm Sarah Seibert, Managing Editor, GovCIO Media and Research, and joining me today is Dean of Texas A&M's Bush School of Government and Public Service, John Sherman. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Sarah. It's wonderful to be talking to you from College Station, Texas.
So before College Station, Texas, you're a political appointee for two CIO positions, one as the Intelligence Community CIO under the first Trump administration, and then one most recently as DOD CIO under former President Joe Biden. So bringing a wealth of experience here. Earlier this month, OPM released guidance regarding redesignating SES CIO positions, which opens the door for what OPM calls general employees to be appointed to these positions. And the document argues that CIOs have served in increasingly policy-based positions and that this will move to increase the talent pool. What's your perspective on this document?
Definitely see the rationale at the departmental level and even down to some agencies and so on. You do want to be responsive to the administration and office. And while there's not necessarily a Republican or Democratic way to do IT, cybersecurity, there are priorities that an administration wants to follow, whether it's in the realm of software modernization, cloud transition. So I certainly see the rationale there. My only concern is if you go too far down into the interagency. For example, when I was in the intelligence community, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, where I spent a number of years, they have a lot of modern and legacy systems, moving imagery and geospatial data around. Parachuting a political appointee in there who's not familiar with the mission, who might be very focused on the short-term modernization, which is a great goal, but not understanding all the piping and some of the history. I think this is where you get into some problem. So I think it's great for that person to have a higher up who's an appointee, like the DOD CIO or IC CIO, but going too far down into the plumbing, as it were, I think that's where you could run into some challenges. Now, one could argue too, you put a career deputy with that person and a staff around them, they could be successful. And I don't deny that there, but I think their learning curve is going to be pretty steep. So respectfully to the new administration, I would just ask, you need a blend, and going too far down, I think has got some hazards, and just be thoughtful. And that's not only on the Intel side, but there could be other agencies that have the similar challenges.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. In your CIO roles, you led several massive IT initiatives, including canceling the common desktop in the IC, moving from JEDI to JWCC and DoD, implementing zero trust, and more. Where do you expect the new administration to expand on federal modernization and cybersecurity initiatives?
So starting with cybersecurity, I think they're going to keep up the press on that front. Global adversaries, non-state actors, and others are going to continue to threaten the United States, businesses here, private citizens, whether it's ransomware, whether it's cyber attacks, any number of threat vectors there. So I see them continuing that. I also see a strong emphasis on rapid modernization. And not that this wasn't happening before, but really trying to move even faster on software modernization, on tech insertion. Secretary Hegseth at DOD has emphasized that. And again, my former bosses did that as well. But I think you're going to continue to see that with a lot of innovative folks coming in, really trying to step on the gas with this. And as well as with things that we're working on with move to the cloud, evolving how we think about hybrid architectures, cloud and on-prem. But I really see, maybe if I had to summarize it in a couple of words, speed to need. I think they're really going to try to press on that and bringing in folks from industry who can maybe reduce flash to bang, as it were, on bringing in new capabilities, really getting into DevSecOps and closing the deal on some things we started with the move to zero trust and other areas like that. So nothing drastically different, but acceleration would maybe be the word of the day that I would expect from the new administration.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. If there's two new buzzwords, well, they're not new, but from this administration so far, I'd say efficiency and innovation, like really putting the pedal to the metal on this stuff. Earlier this month, the new Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said he'll prioritize modernizing the nuclear triad and building an iron dome to defend against aerial threats. Where do you see tech expanding to support some of these new priorities?
So let me start with the Iron Dome for America piece. First and foremost, Sarah, spectrum is going to be critical. Now, this was something I focused on at DOD, not so much on the IC side. And I've written and said a lot about this. I get the need to balance our economic interests with our military interests. We need to be able to create opportunities for US companies to dominate the 5G and next G space. But if we're going to be protecting, and we should, the continental United States as well as Alaska, Hawaii, and our territories, we're going to have to be able to leverage spectrum. And it's that lower 3 gigahertz, which the industry partners also want to be able to use. But in terms of being able to detect and intercept missiles of the sort that our Israeli allies have been dealing with over the last number of years, we're going to have to be thoughtful about how we use spectrum. We've talked a lot about sharing spectrum and technologies. And that's another area I should add. I would believe that the new administration is going to continue to work that out because it's a very finite amount of spectrum we have. So that's one. Also, on the Iron Dome piece, I think transport is going to be key, not only terrestrial, but space based and other ways to move data quickly from
Mhm.
sensor to shooter, and also taking lessons, frankly, from the Israelis and others in terms of being able to have an integrated air defense system that we've also complemented with US and allied capabilities. You mentioned NC3 and National Leader Command capabilities, which oversaw the NLCC piece as CIO. Obviously, that gets into a lot of classified pieces, but I think the biggest thing I could say at an unclassified level is making it a priority for investment to ensure the capabilities there are up to the mission need for US Strategic Command and other users of that. So the president on down will have secure, reliable communications to be able to direct US forces either in a defensive or offensive mode on a really tough day. So that's got to be an area I would hope the CIOs and others would be emphasizing for investment because it's not high visibility, it's
Mhm.
behind the scenes, but it is critical for the president to execute his commander in chief mission.
Right, that makes sense. And earlier we touched on this, but just moving fast, boosting the speed to make us more competitive. President Donald Trump's AI executive order called for reduced regulation around AI specifically to boost national innovation and boost that competitiveness with some of our adversaries. How do you expect tech development to shift under this directive? And what are some of the opportunities and risks to this approach?
I think this personally is the right move here.
Mhm.
Growing up here in Texas, working in the oil field, I did see a lot of environmental regulations, and we can debate the efficacy of those, but slowing some things down. So I've got a personal feeling on excessive regulation. Maybe the best analogy is not the oil patch, but the US airline and air industry in the 20s and 30s. They still needed regulation, but allowing the private sector to move out from government invested entities to airlines and other defense areas, which enable us in World War II to dominate, turning out 30,000 planes a month at the height of World War II. So I think this is a good thing to be able to allow industry to move quickly. We had all the kerfluffle on DeepSeek a month ago, which just seemed to die down. I think we're going to continue to see these ebbs and flows of new capabilities. The risk, I think we've all thought about here. We don't want things going into a space that can threaten our operations, do things not consistent with our U.S. values, not be effective. That's another big concern I have beyond the Skynet worries or what have you. I want AI that's going to be used for our warfighters to be reliable. So all those things. So you can't take your hand off the bicycle seat too much, but you also don't want to be running alongside the bike indefinitely here. So that's the balance. But I think the reduced regulation is good, but
Mhm.
oversight and keeping a close eye on this with smart people who understand AI, the data, the algorithms is going to be critical going forward.
Right, I totally agree with you. And as part of this kind of ties in, but the new administration is also pushing big changes and have made continuous calls for speed and efficiency. So, as we've seen, I don't know if I've ever covered government in a time where things are moving this quickly. So, how can this be done in the right way, balancing the safety that's in bureaucracy? I want to air quote safety with bureaucracy. And then the competitive advantage that comes from innovation.
One of the biggest things I had to deal with as CIO was, and you, Sarah, and the team there cover a lot of the defense IT ecosystem,
Mhm.
move faster, get software out there more quickly, get rid of some of the checks that we have to do so it can get to the warfighter more quickly. And I agree with that. But then if there's a cyber incident, everyone gets punched in the nose here. So there's some risk, and we don't want to let the Chinese in on our weapon systems or anything like that. There's got to be a balance of risk tolerance, or risk management, maybe is a better way to put it. So move fast, move at the speed of mission, but also recognize we can't just leave the barn door open either and allow something terrible to happen. But as senior leaders, and when I say this, it's not only in the executive branch, it's Congress, it's others, understanding that if you're gonna run fast, sometime things could happen. So there's a balance there. And I feel like everyone is, oh, take the risk until something happens and then it's all the, well, you were running too fast on this. That's one piece of it. So I really compliment the new administration's focus on moving quickly. You mentioned efficiencies too, and I'd be remiss if I didn't note this because I've written about this as well. I understand what they're doing on the personnel front. It's tough in many regards, but my respectful plea to the administration is on the new hires and probationary period, folks. These are your innovators coming in, the driven individuals who have aspired to work at these agencies and organizations. Those are the ones who are going to perhaps innovate the most, work the hardest and the latest sometime, and be willing to go to the most dangerous places. And I mean this with the utmost respect to the administration, but please let's not eat our seed corn here. Um, let's be thoughtful about the efficiencies that are underway here, because I'm convinced those individuals that are at the front end of their careers are the ones that are going to give us our superpowers against the PRC and other potential adversaries there. So I wanted to highlight that point just for a second.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's definitely been a big shift from what we've seen in previous administrations where there's programs around, bringing in new talent. So I'll be interested to see when things settle where we go, what the path forward looks like.
Absolutely. Well, Sarah, thanks for having me on. And one other thing here too at the Bush School, what I do get to have an opportunity to do every day is interact with students who aspire to serve in government and service, and not only at the federal level, state and local as well. But this gets back to what I was talking about, individuals that say, send me, I'm ready. And so this has been and continues to be a great opportunity down here at the Texas A&M Bush School of Government and Public Service.
That's exciting. I'd love to connect on, any of the achievements that you've made in the future. But it's great to chat, and thank you again for joining GovCast.
Thank you, Sarah.
GovCast, along with Cybercast and HealthCast, is a production of GovCIO Media and Research. For more podcasts and to check out the other shows, head to govciomedia.com.